Armada Book 2 Chapter 11 The Orphans. March 2060. Since Andrew did not want to deal with the Munoans, Ellie started to study them while they were still parked nearby. They were just waiting for events they already know will happen and the response have already been laid out. The next day Ellie beamed into Andrew's bridge. Eric and Gantley were there standing while Gadden and Roger were lounging in the chairs further back discussing some attack strategy. Sir, there was a wobble, a distortion in the magnetic field in a group of about 100 solar systems 2 MLY away. When we took a closer look there was this rogue planet a tenth the size of our sun, very large, fly by 3 medium-sized star systems. It caused the planets in the 3 nearest solar systems to wobble. Wobble as in shaken and rattled Ellie? Eric asked. Ellie laughed and, not like a dance but a very subtle brush. Imagine this is the magnetic field of the 3 solar systems that was very close to each other. It's like there's this large truck going through the town, rambling on the pavement, shaking the ground, walls, and the floor. In this case, its flight alone will distort the field around it as it moves through the entire field. If the planets that it brushed by were inhabited, their weather patterns would have been in chaos. The planets were not pushed out and were not forced out to leave their orbits, but the magnetic field within their solar system was greatly altered by the movement of the orphan planet. If they brushed closer, the effect would have been catastrophic. Were there inhabitants in those 3 solar systems? Andrew asked. Olive answered, none, except for one small moon. That's what makes this interesting. The large rogue planet has a small moon following it. It's about a third of the planet Earth. Ellie said. And the moon has inhabitants? Andrew asked. Yes, and the moon look very strange. Ellie said. Why so? Eric asked. Well, scan shows it looks like a regular rocky moon on one side and a large metal ball on the other side, the one facing the big rogue planet. I recommend that we check it out, it could be interesting. You find the strangest things when you least expect them. Gantley commented. I found my wallet in college when I visited my friend's house, after more than 30 years. That's strange. Andrew said. Ellie countered, that's not strange, sir. Your friend kept your wallet and did not tell you. Never mind Ellie. Since the rogue planet is just nearby, let's get over there and nosy around. Olive, tell Linda to take care of the planets below. Tell her where we are going and to follow us when she's done. Olive looked for a planet close along its intended path and parked behind it. In less than an hour they were behind a gaseous planet well ahead of the path of the rogue planet 50 LY away. The rogue planet will pass by this area in a month. The moon is indeed strange. Olive said. Olive presented a cut-up schematic of the moon from a few hundred scans she made. Half is rocky on one side while the other half is a metallic mass. If you go 10 miles deep on the metallic side, there are a few hundred large bodies of water, the total of which is like 11% of the whole moon size, which is really large. Underneath the water is a rocky mantle around a largely metallic core which has largely cooled down but still hot enough to provide heat to the water and not freeze it. So this metallic structure is 10 miles deep and this looks as if several tunnels of the metallic city goes underneath the rocky side of the moon. Andrew noted. You know what's even stranger is that this moon has a way to leave the rogue planet it's following and fly somewhere else. Ellie said. So a flying moon? Eric exclaimed. If you had a spaceship like that, it's going to be awfully hard to destroy. Gantley said. And like a ship it has surface batteries and several ship docks. Olive, have you made out their ships already? Ellie asked. Olive presented a hologram of 4 ships. This one is like our attack sabers, this one is their small transport ship like our dogs, and this one is like our large transport ships only half the size. The largest ships are a quarter of the size of a Vinta. They have 422 of this Vintas and 2,544 of the attack ships. We also noticed that they have been going back and forth with the rogue planet. Doing what? Andrew asked. Mining metals or something. Ellie said. I seem to sense some Max thoughts. Gadden said. That's not good. Let's go. And with that they all left Andrew and Olive as they all went back to their ships. Olive, where is the nearest hop outpost? Andrew, one is right next to us about 10 MLY away. The distance to the rogue planet only needs one hop outpost in between. I will dispatch one right away. Gadden beamed into Andrew's bridge. I talked with Taromo, he's the Mac with the strongest telepathic abilities, and he told me that indeed there are Macs on the planet. He could not make out their thoughts but he felt them distressed. Olive, get in touch with Billy and tell him what we are about to do. Andrew said. Gantley beamed in also. What we can do is to send an outpost nearer so we can listen in better. I sent out 12 probes around it so in a few minutes we'll have clearer videos. Olive added, I have sent one hop outpost just 4 LY away from the planet. Eric and Roger beamed in. Our Max and Inkeys are all ready to go on your order. Eric said. Let's wait and watch for a while. Andrew said. Ellie got in just in time as the videos came on the floating hologram screens. Olive explained, they do not seem to notice the probes around them. The Norsets are busy trying to make sense out of their language. The scans and probes show there are more than 20 million inhabitants in that moon moving about their regular lives. We have not scanned a Mac yet. This means they are very deep inside the moon. The natives look like Marantais, only taller and more obese. They seem to all have a large hump in their upper torso. Ellie said. She was looking at the open windows. Have you divided the target areas? Andrew asked as he turned to Roger and Eric. They have their respective assigned quadrants and some were assigned to go deep and find the Macs. Gantley answered. Okay, send them out. And look for their leaders. Andrew said. 24 screens popped up in front of the group showing different areas of the ship. Olive separated the screens for those assigned to go deep underground and look for the Macs. These Macs were initially beamed almost to the bottom of the metallic city. The group watched the videos and after 2 hours they could hear the aliens in the holo speak in English. They listened but all they hear and see were regular activities. Andrew decided to focus on the Macs going deep underground. Olive switched off the transmission for the rest until she can identify who the leaders were. The videos were planted in the hallways and there seems to be maze of hallways in an underground city. Almost all of the hallways and open areas had high ceilings and very wide. Several of the Macs communicated to the ship that they have faced sealed-up doors and requested for beam up to the other side. Once they got to the other side, the scene became 50% darker and the air was slightly less. The temperature was 10 degrees higher with some smoke or mist getting in from cracks on the wall. The Macs sensed that they were near. Olive started showing the new underground world on screen. Gadden, have the other Macs get inside from the other side. I think we found the Mac side of the world. Andrew said. Within a few minutes, all the underground Macs were in similar settings. The hallways were all misty, dirty, and narrow. When they reached an open area, the mist cleared and they saw their first group of Macs. They immediately tagged them. They touched them and they were able to understand their subterranean world. It would be shocking for the inexperienced Macs, but these Macs have seen a lot since from the Slander operations. Some of the Macs told them that there were Macs who were very sick and they moved to these Macs and tagged them. Olive immediately beamed them to the medic hall. Andrew and the others went to the medic hall to meet the Macs. Once there the Macs worked on them immediately. Gadden reported, Andrew, the Macs tell us that they were abducted from a planet near the end of the Mac galaxies more than 90 years ago. From there they were imprisoned in the subterranean world and their only communication with their captors were when they get the fish from the waters and give these fish to their captors. The captors in exchange provide them with air. All the metal doors were shut and their food comes from the fish they get from the waters. The screens were now alive with scenes from the underground world. Andrew countered, Gadden, re-evaluate the grids and send out all the taggers. I want all the Macs tagged as fast as we can. Roger, send all our military personnel out to help in the tagging. Andrew looked at the schematics of the underground city and it looked very large like the whole continental US as an underground metallic city. Sir, I think we should start beaming in the Macs so we can process them immediately. Ellie said. Go ahead, Ellie. Olive, do you have an estimate of the Macs underground? Andrew, the scanning is not going through in some areas but I believe around 4 million Macs are underground. We have 200 ships and we can get them all in at around 20,000 per ship. The tagging operations will be finished in 18 hours. One of the Macs that were beamed to the medic hall was the Mac leader by the name of Dickerin and when Gadden realized it he sought him out. Hello, my name is Gadden. They say you are their leader Dickerin. Yes until I got sick. Now their leader is my assistant Tonomo. Dickerin said. Gadden told Olive to bring Andrew and the others here. Dickerin, this is our leader General Andrew Mann. This is Gantley, Ellie, Eric, and Roger. Dickerin was very glad and amazed. Dickerin, tell us what happened. Andrew said. We were abducted 90 years ago and from that time on we have not seen the stars or sunlight. We were simply put into the underground city where the waters are and we saw that there were fish that we could eat. When we fished our captors got our fish and left some for us. This went on for years until they learned our language and they told us to fish or we will all die. They can stop the flow of air into the rooms and we would die. So we fished in exchange for air. They do not talk to us or go to our place underground. We have not seen any of their kind other than our guards so we don't know anything. When they were abducted they were medieval in technology. A lot of them have died off due to sickness and hardship. Gadden explained. Olive appeared, there is another side of the complex that has regular Marantais. Olive showed a video probe feed showing Marantais manning equipment but in dark and squalid conditions. I estimate that there are about 1.5 million Marantais working as slaves. They were also being fed the fish the Max caught. We have Marantais in our crew, right Olive? Andrew asked. Yes Andrew, we have several thousands from the 10 ships remember? They are all out tagging with all the others. I guess I figure that much. Anyway, we would have to finish tagging the Max first before the Marantais. We do not know of other aliens in this world. As I said, we were thrown into our prison city and left there. Dickerin said. Olive reported, the ships have started to feel the pressure of the Max beaming in. Boss Andrew, maybe we can send some Max back through the hop outposts. We cannot possibly feed all of them for the next several days. I can have a Mac accompany 50 Macs at a time. The escorts can reach the nearest Mac planet within a day. Roger suggested. The Macs from the other side are sending supplies at the hop outpost for our refugees so they don't have to bring anything on the way back. Olive said. I guess they know what we are thinking before we even thought about doing them. Roger said. That's still good thinking Roger, send them through. But tell the escorting Macs to come back immediately. Andrew said. Olive, tell the Macs to deploy the Macs as escorts or just ushers in each hop outpost and have them guide the refugees the rest of the way or give them food or whatever in their trip. This way we do not lose our people longer than we should. Roger said. The next day, Andrew, all the taggers have started with the Marantais. What's strange is that our Marantais themselves do not know the language of the captured Marantais, Gatton said. Can you study their lineage? Maybe these ones come from an entirely different line? The Marantais we know only have a few planets. There could be more like them out there. Andrew said. Ellie beamed in front of Andrew, Gatton, and Roger. I have some bad news. It could be good. Andrew countered. No, it's really bad, sir. The fat Marinti-like aliens are actually Marantais that were used as hosts by this alien form. Ellie said and showed a hologram of a dark-colored octopus-like creature with 6 tentacles with yellow stripes along these tentacles and 3 small heads or bumps or maybe eyes. Then she showed the fat Marinti and the octopus is attached to their back. Then she showed a creature around the waist of the Marinti that are like small, dark and with the same yellow stripes version of the octopus. 2 of its arms are underneath the skin of the Marinti. Ellie continued, the alien attached themselves to the Marantais and takes hold of their consciousness. We know this because the language the slave Marantais used are not the language they use to communicate when they have these octopus attached to them. If you notice, one of the tentacles of the octopus goes through to the brain while the other one goes down and holds the smaller octopus. The hologram shows the inside of the Marinti and the tentacles into its brain. Ellie continued, this relationship is parasitical to the Marinti. It would seem that the parasites have been with their hosts for a long time, like several dozen years, and the host Marinti is really just a body the parasites have taken over. It could well be dead already. We do not know if we can turn them back to their old form. Why don't we get 1 or 2 of these and try to separate them? Andrew asked. We have identified 5 test subjects and I have asked some of the Marinti scientists with me to take a look. We just need your go-ahead, sir. Andrew nodded, do it right away. Gantley beamed in front of Ellie. It would seem that the 20 million Marantais will soon become a problem. Even if we can separate them, there will come a point of engagement. I have to go. Ellie said and disappeared. You're saying we have to disable all their weapons? Roger asked. Yes, the parasite will use the Marantais to fly the attack ships, and if we engage them they would all be killed, and we don't want that. Gantley said. Now the problem becomes bigger, as large as the planet itself. Okay, tag all the engines and weapons batteries. Roger, tell the Marines to go do the tagging of the engines and weapons. Andrew said. The next day, all the Macs have been tagged and are halfway finished being beamed onto the ships. They have started tagging the Marinti slaves working on the machines. The Marines have also finished tagging the ship engines and weapons batteries. Andrew and the rest were summoned by Ellie to her ship. What's up with the test subjects, Ellie? Andrew asked. Roger, Eric, Gatton and Gantley have just beamed in. When we separated the large octopus from the Marinti host, the host started to die. It's like there is a protein that goes through the body that sustains it and keeps it alive. Without this, it simply dies. In addition to this theory is that when you remove the octopus, they secrete a sort of poison that reacts with the protein, and this reaction kills the host. The ordinary Marinti does not have this protein and it still lives. The conclusion is that the physiology of the host Marantais has changed to depend on the protein and it will die without it. The Marantais and the Norsets are trying to identify this with the intention of recreating it so we can feed it to the host once we remove the parasite. It may take a while. Ellie explained. How could they get hold of and infect several millions of Marantais? These octopus must be really dangerous even to us. Andrew commented. Ellie conjectured, it could be that the Marantais are inhabitants of the rogue moon and they were slowly taken over. We don't really know. The Norsets are still getting all the data together from the ships and from their main data systems. We do know that they are very violent with their own kind, as the slaves below show. As far as the octopus being a threat, they squirt this substance that paralyzes the subject, then they take over. So if you are still moving, that means you're okay? Andrew asked. Ellie laughed. I'm okay, and don't worry, sir. When we tried to remove the octopus, they squirted their deadly venom, and after a few minutes they died. They have also grown to depend on their hosts, that without them they also die. I think we have a large moon-sized lab. We just need to park it where we can easily access it. Gantley said. We can tow it all the way to the Marinti galaxies. But that will take all 200 ships 3 months to do. Ellie suggested. I thought the moon has its own propulsion system. Why don't we just let it fly over to the Marintis? Andrew asked. It could take several months. Ellie said. An alternative to a solution is to kick the can down the road. Is there a way to put them all in stasis or hold them with something that will preserve them for some time until we figure out a solution to the problem? Roger asked. Or we can let them be. The Marintis are no longer Marintis. Think of them as a different or new set of aliens who have the same right to live. Andrew said. Ellie countered, Sir, if we remove all the Max and Marinti slaves, they will lose the people working to get their food and run their machines. They would have to start learning how to do the chores in order to survive. Gantley said. If we let them be, eventually they will die. The small planet or moon is simply not sustainable. If we do not remove the Max and Marintis, these would be the first to die sooner or later. Ellie said. So you're saying transfer them to a regular planet in order to survive? Eric asked. There is an Earth-like planet near the Munoans, remember? Ellie asked. I think that would be the easier solution. How far is that planet, Olive? Andrew asked. A little over 500 MLY away, Andrew. There is a nearer planet within beaming range at 30 LY away. It is twice the size of the moon and has plenty of water. I think that's where we'll send them to so they can live in peace. Let's remove their interstellar travel capabilities and let them build their own societies without being a threat to the Max and Marintis. Andrew said. So now the issue is to tag them, all 20 million, and start transferring them to the planet. That's a lot to tag even for us. What for? Roger asked. Or we can give them a choice. Gantley said. A choice to die or not. But who do we talk to? Does any one of you know who the leaders are? Andrew asked. It is so strange that up to now we do not know if they have leaders at all. Roger noted. The idea is that we put up a TP on the moon and they have a choice to leave in order to live or stay and die. Gantley said. What if they choose the status quo and sit it out? They will still survive for maybe 100 or so years, and then the food gets smaller and they will probably have a population problem and soon they die. Then they would have to go near a planet and try to get resources. Ellie said. At least they chose to die. But I'm sure nobody wants to die if they can have a choice not to die. Gantley said. If we disable their propulsion systems and let them sit near the planet we can move them to, we can leave them alone with the TP on their moon. They can either leave or not. If we do not disable their ability to move around, even at a slow pace, they will get hold of other species and enslave or use them as well. Roger said. Gantley added, we still have our probes around them. So if they try anything foolish we go in and fix it. The Marinti hybrids do not have long-range sensors. I think we should let our probe get nearer, say within 10 light years. Ellie suggested. Andrew agreed, do that, Ellie. So we are just letting them go their merry way and forgive all the bad things they did to the Max and Marintis? Gadden asked. It's really a wild world out there, and if we do not let them go and opt to make them pay for their crimes, what do we do? Imprison 20 million people? Gantley asked. There is no justice then for the pain and suffering they caused. Eric said. If you think about it, the octopus creatures took over the Marintis. These Marintis are the real victims because they are in effect dead. But then the octopus are low-level organisms who suddenly became intelligent, but not too intelligent because it let itself be too dependent on the Marinti host and would die if separated. So the Marintis are the real victims and the octopus turned themselves into victims as well. Ellie explained. So since they used to be low-level organisms that suddenly became smart, they could not be made accountable for their actions? Eric asked. I think that the Marinti hosts were the smart part. The octopus was not that smart. The way I see it is that take dogs which you treat as pets. If a dog kills people, you do not subject it to the same human justice system. Either you kill it or keep it locked up. Or you let it go because it was not intelligent enough and were acting on instinct. Now if the dogs suddenly became smart because they were now able to attach and connect to their owner like the octopi have, who would be responsible for the dog's action? Or was it a human action? Gantley asked. Let me get your thinking, the Marantais were the ones doing the bad things because they were the intelligent life form while the octopus simply lives with them and giving them some basic parameters like preservation of all octopus species. Ellie said. Gantley nodded, that could be. This is not your normal intelligent species. This is a hybrid of two distinct species that over the years created a very dependent relationship. If we subject them to our normal laws, we would be as guilty as they are when they impose their understanding of what is right and wrong on the Max and Marantais. By now the Marinti hybrids are up in arms after losing all their slaves and not knowing how that happened. Roger said. Okay, let's give them a choice then. We make contact the moment all our people are secure and all the Max and Marantais have beamed out. Eric said. Or we can just leave. No explanation, no contact, no jugement. Andrew said and continued. I think they will choose their merry way anyway. The point is that a choice also imposes a sort of justice from us to them. Why do we have to give them a choice to live? They already have an instinct to live. Out in the wild the tiger takes only what it needs to survive. It will not impose its justice or intellect on the other species. It takes only what it needs to remain alive in the world. If they choose to stay in the moon, let them do what they like. Let's just monitor them that they do not enslave another species and that's it. Okay, so let's let them be. If we destroy their attack ships, they will rebuild them. We simply delayed their abilities to go to another planet. To delay them better, why don't we just TP those ships over to our hangars? Leave their transport ships intact and that's it. Then we leave. Roger said. All was quiet after the exchange. Linda's hologram broke the silence. I am done with the Munoans and my ships will be joining you in an hour. That's fine, but we'll just be going home once we get all our people in. Andrew said. I guess nothing exciting ever happens. No conflict, no engagement, no drama, no bad guys, and heroes, we just do what we do. Get our people out and then we go home. Gantley said. The situation will not make for a good movie. Ellie commented. Speaking of movies, Eric, what was that movie thing all about? Oh, it would start off as a blog and a book, then the stories will turn into a TV series, then after a few months, a movie will be made. Of what? Us, and Gantley, you and everything and everybody else off-world. Roger answered. Ellie added, Edna and the girls bought a network to do this on Earth as a way of telling people on Earth about us, so when the time comes to out the whole thing they would probably not believe it because they already know who Roden is or what Gantley does, or what Billy or Tony or you or Eric did. It will be so much fun. People have started to research and the best scriptwriters are on the project already. Do I get to choose the actress for my character? Linda asked. Yes, but no A-list stars for any of us. Andrew said. That's fine, the actress I have in mind is a C-lister but very good. The conversation started again about their adventures and misadventures. About Andy's stakes and Tony's wedding. Olive reported. All our people are in Andrew. All the alien ships have been beamed into various cargo bays. All the probes are in position and the outposts moved back. We can leave on your order. I will see you guys at Tony's wedding. Gantley said. Olive, plot a course for planet Los Angeles. Let's all go home. The next day, Gantley appeared as a hologram on Andrew's bridge. What's up, Gantley? Will I suppose that we are not continuing on our merry way home? Andrew asked. Gantley started, your instincts serve you well. My chief science officer tells me that they have finished verifying and analyzing the data from the rogue moon. Remember we beamed their ships to our cargo bays. You have some and I have some of the big and small ships. It would seem that the octopus was really a science experiment of a race called Datuan and they re-engineered these creatures so they can send them on to an enemy planet. These Datuans actually went to a Marinti planet and to a Mac planet and abducted the people. Right then Ellie beamed herself on the bridge. Sir, the data is very clear. Stay in your present position for a few hours. I will come to you. Gantley said. Andrew groaned, I want to go home, Ellie. Yes sir, but we may very well just let go on their merry way a weapon systems that is organic. Like living robots. Eric, Gadden, Linda, Roger, some Marinti scientists and officers and a lot more key personnel beamed into Andrew's bridge. Sir, this is Bhaskar's cousin Sanipa, the head Marinti scientist in my ship. Ellie said. Roger commented, Sir, the weapon system is sinister as it is deadly. Nobody get excited here, okay? Have a seat. I have plenty for everyone. He sat at the main chair facing 3 very large sofas and several chairs at the back. What is more engaging is that they are fighting a species called the Talonot, which are as advanced as they are in order to control trade amongst a galaxy with more than 180 inhabited planets. Based on the data gathered by the Norsets, after scouting for potential subjects they found the Max and their enemy Talonots and used them as the first test subjects. There are more test subjects. These people would be used as war and operations personnel. They control the Marantais through the smaller octopus at the bottom. The bigger octopus controls the subject while the smaller one controls the bigger octopus. There is a signal form that the small octopus understands and follows. The Norsets are right now trying to study the form of signal to control these small octopus. Ellie explained. The universe is really a strange place. Andrew said. At one point in the conflict, some 120 years ago, the Datuans decided on this weapon systems because they foresee that they would be running out of loyal warriors and personnel. Unfortunately, they lost contact with the small octopi and the small moon drifted with no clear destination using its propulsion system. This happened about 60 years ago, in the thick of war. They simply lost their experiment, maybe due to some cataclysmic explosion that dislodged this moon. And if you lose something, you tend to look for it. They could not find it because it lodged itself at the back of the large planet. And since they do not have advanced tracking capabilities, they could not find their lost moon. Ellie said. So it's a commercial battle. They settle the market shares depending on who controls galaxies. Andrew said. Eric nodded, pretty much. Ellie continued, from the data we gathered from the ships, they do not have teleporting capabilities and their communication systems are very much less advanced compared to the Max. The weapon systems on the ships are standard laser and their speed is very slow. They do not have cloaking capabilities. Their power systems are unique since they use a certain crystal in a process that turn the crystal neutrons into a concentrated power stream. Like a neutron gun. Their technology is a mix of more advanced and least advanced systems. Maybe the decision was dependent on costs, not efficiency. What about the Talonauts, what are they? Andrew asked. I believe they are the original Marantais. Remember, our ship's Marantais could not figure out their language. There is no similarity at all. So Sanipa here ran a DNA analysis and they realized their lineage are totally different. Like the Max or the Neanderthals to us. The Norsets are still working on their language and will be finished soon. Ellie said. To the Marantais, this is probably the most exciting find in their whole history. To know where they came from. Eric said. The information is really exciting as it is threatening. Absolutely if you're Marinti. Andrew said. Roger noted, I remember the Marantais allocated 10 ships to us which we left with the trigger operation. Why don't we pull them out and tell them to meet us along the way? That's a good idea. Go tell them right away. Andrew said. How far are these Talonauts? Andrew asked. About 8 BLY away outwards from the reaches of the Orphan galaxies. Eric said. I think it's worth checking out since it does constitute a credible threat. Andrew said. Roger agreed, boss, it is a credible threat because 2 of our species were already enslaved. Gantley still has 90 hops being towed. This may be enough for the distance if we start from the Mort galaxies. Gadden said. Andrew, it will take us 34 days to reach the target galaxies. Longer if we are towing the outposts. Olive said. So our action plan now is to send all our refugees through the hops except the refugee Marantais. This will take us several weeks unless we move near hop lines towards the Mort galaxies. But that's like going back instead of taking a straight course. Ellie said. Let's wait for Gantley. Maybe the solution is to leave outposts on the way to the Talonauts and have our passengers depart as we go along. Their trip will take longer and longer, but at least we are not doubling back. Olive, where is the nearest hop outpost to the target galaxies? Andrew asked. The last hop outposts from the Bofangs but towards the target galaxies is this one here. Olive said, showing the outpost. Can we also call Billy to sequester the moon and at least hold it for a while until we can figure out a solution to the science experiment? Roger asked. Why do you always have these ideas, Roger? Eric asked. Roger laughed. I'm a strategist. I think of something and think of something to counteract that thing. I don't know. I don't really know. The ideas just pop out of my head. Andrew agreed. Good idea, Roger. Tell Billy to do that. Here's an idea, why don't we give Tony the coordinates so he can start putting hop outpost from the Bofangs all the way to the Talonauts. This way we can go to the Talonaut galaxy directly. Eric said. See, you have it also. Roger exclaimed. Good idea, Eric, tell Tony to do that. Andrew said. Ellie countered, why don't we just let Olive do the telling? Good idea, Ellie, tell Olive to do that. Andrew said. You don't have to tell me. I already did. Olive said. And? Andrew asked and looked at Olive. Tony and Billy said yes. The guys just smiled. Okay, going back to the intel, the Talonauts we would now assume are the ancestors of our Marantais, and the Marantais we rescued were actually Talonauts. So nobody gets confused when we say Talonauts, we do not mean Marantais. Marantais mean Baskar and Sanipa Marantais. Andrew said. Ellie smiled. I guess we should not confuse them from each other. Olive, explain to me. If we leave the hop outpost as we move towards the Talonauts, and then we connect the last end of our hop outpost to Tony's hop outposts that he is laying towards the Talonauts from the Bowfangs. Andrew said. Olive interrupted him and showed a hologram of the outpost's deployment from the present position towards an area towards the Talonauts where it connects to the outposts Tony would lay out from the Bowfangs, like this. Olive said. Yes, like that. That means we have 2 lines towards the hop network. Andrew said. Yes, this line and Tony's line. Olive said. So the point is we have a logistics line connecting our home worlds to wherever we are. Eric said. Yes, because by the time we reach this area here at the intersection with Tony's line, our supply would be terribly low because we only have 1 line to dispatch the max through and we have over 1 million Talonauts, on board. See, even I get confused with the Talonauts. Andrew said. Yes, Andrew, the Max understand. The Marinti homeworld also know what we are doing and they are up to their necks in excitement. They are sending more ships in addition to the 10 ships and sending more Marinti supplies through the hops. Also Tonin will meet us at the intersection point. They also designated this planet as our staging area. So all is well. We only have to fly over there. Andrew said. When Gantley met up with them they started their journey towards the intersect area. Along the way they deployed the hops at proper intervals and as the hops were deployed, the Mac refugees were sent through. By the time they reached the intersection area after 34 days, they only had 6 hop outposts left. They still had just under 1 BLY to go. Sanipa appeared before Andrew. Andrew, a sizable number of the Talonauts want to visit the Marinti home world. We have given them the translators so they can talk to our people. They are also excited to meet a more advanced Marinti race. How many wanted to go? Andrew asked. Over 200,000. That's a lot. Use the empty transport ships and beam down to the staging area and have them wait for their turn through the hop networks. We only have 1 direct line to your galaxy and there are a lot of them. Andrew said. Several ships were also waiting for them at the intersection. 150 of Andrew's ships were there waiting and Tonin with 400 ships. The Max had 40 supply ships waiting. When Roden heard what's going down, he sent 300 ship for Gantley. There were also 50 Marinti ships including the 10 they sent earlier but Andrew left behind. Bastgar and Tonin beamed to Andrew's bridge where they found Gantley and GX1 and the other leaders. Andrew greeted the group. Bastgar, good to see you join our little soiree. Bastgar smiled. I want to be in on the action. Originally I thought 10 ships were needed for the expedition but I guess a few more would not hurt. Andrew said. We have 1,100 ships and 40 supply ships. I think this is getting overexcited. Ellie said. We just want to make sure we dominate the bad guys. Tonin said. Bastgar exclaimed, imagine, we would finally meet our ancestors. The Marinti planets are all excited. We really don't know yet what will happen. Gantley said. Well, this is as far as anybody in our galaxies have traveled en masse. Bastgar noted. I took the liberty of sending 10 scout ships ahead 5 days ago so by the time we reach the area we already know the lay of the land. Tonin said. Good Tonin. If we are all ready to go, let's go. Andrew said. 2 days before they reached the location of the scout ships, they started getting raw intel already. They started to analyze the intel to have a clear picture of the operating field even before they reached the area. After 4 days they arrived at an area 50 MLY from the Talonaut galaxy. They were advised by the scout ships to park themselves near a large gaseous planet. The scout ships were also parked near the same gaseous planet. Tonin beamed to Andrew's bridge with the commander of the Norset scout ships. Hi Andrew, this is Resban, the commander of the scout ships. Tonin introduced his commander. Gadden, Ellie, Eric, and Roger were there with Gantley. Then Bastgar beamed with another Marinti named Skamanak. Hi guys, this is Skamanak, he is the leader of the Talonaut Marintis. Bastgar said. Andrew countered, I told you guys not to call the Talonauts Marintis because they are Talonauts. We already know they are Marintis. So if you say Talonaut, we know they are Talonaut and if you say Marintis we would know they are not Talonauts but Bastgar Marintis. Bastgar laughed, it does get confusing to non-Marintis. Skamanak, please explain to these people what you like to do. Some of us Talonauts will operate one of the large ships and together with your Marintis will go to one of our planets and see what we can find out. Skamanak said. Resban, what have you found out? Tonin asked. Resban started, we were able to hack into their data systems, quite easily actually. We found out a lot of things. First there is an ongoing war and the Talonauts are losing. They are losing because the Datuans are enslaving the planets with the use of the octopi. For example, one of the planets called Sakatnina was peppered with these octopus, and within days, a large part of the population was paralyzed, then enslaved. The enslaved Talonauts are now part of the Dachuan armies, and the Dachuans send the enslaved Talonauts on suicide missions. At first, the Talonauts were at a loss as to whether they should engage or kill their kind or leave and not engage. They chose to engage and kill their kind. Resban continued, this war started about 100 years ago. So since then the Dachuans have captured more than 30 planets this way. Until the Talonauts understood that the octopus can be killed and the host can safely live if they are able to kill the octopus within 30 days or so after the host has been paralyzed. This made it harder for the Dachuans to use the octopus weapon. But by then there were now millions of Talonauts under their control, and they have a solid source of loyal warriors numbering maybe in the hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions of zombies? Roger asked. I like that word zombies, rather appropriate if you ask me. Ellie said. So the expansion to other planets stopped. How many Talanaut planets were left? Andrew asked. Resban continued his explanation. There are a total of 121 Talanaut planets. 30 of these were taken over by the Dachuans. The Dachuans used to have 60 planets, now they have 90 including the 30 they got from the Talonauts. So at this point the Talonauts only have 91 planets. The Talonauts also moved their capital to a planet called Reban Nina. I have deployed several probes around this planet. What do you think, Andrew? Tonin asked. Andrew stood and walked a bit. Here's how I think this is going to be played. I think Baskar and Skamanak should make first contact. We can accompany them appearing as Marantais using the chameleon devices. We can dispatch 10 Marinti ships for this project. The initial objective is to gather as much intel as we can from the population. Second, there could be spies among the leadership, so we have to dispatch our taggers to set up videos and tag the leadership. Third, it would be best not to show our hand and our species. It would have to appear as a completely Marinti and Talanaut affair. This will ensure that we get their cooperation. If we appear as aliens to them, they may have some distrust and may not be forthcoming. We would reveal ourselves when we get the job done. Andrew said. I agree. I think that the Talonauts' acceptance of our assistance and their agreement to assist us will be harder if we look like aliens to them. Tonin said. Resban explained, when I arrived I sent 2 ships to recon the Dachuan side. Their numbers are huge, as in really huge. Over 200 million Talanaut zombies and more than 100,000 ships. These ships are located in the outlying Dachuan planets but not near the captured Talanaut planets. About 2 million of these zombies are on the ships, the rest are on the ground as slave workers. They are deployed mostly in the captured Talanaut planet except for a few royals turned zombies. Some of these zombies are royal zombies and they are working in the Dachuan capital. All of the captured planet population are slaves and most are transferred to the Dachuan outlying planets to work. None of the Talanaut slaves are in the main Dachuan planets and cities, and all those in the Dachuan planets are working in the fields, factories, and in the oceans. What about real Dachuan warriors? Tonin asked. The Dachuans have more than 20 million Dachuan warriors and about 20,000 ships. These ships are located near the major planets. Resban said. That's a lot. Tonin commented. We scanned the zombie ships and it turned out they released a gas within the ships that is very toxic but harmless to the zombies. I tested it by sending a Norset tagger using a protection suit. He was immediately beamed back and he almost died. He is still in sickbay getting medical help. Resban said. We do not really need to tag them. We can just beam in a bomb and blow it up. After all, they are already dead anyway. Gantley said. Speaking of bombs, if that is our main option, do we have enough bombs to blow up 100,000 ships? Olive? Roger asked. We have enough to blow up 20 times that number. That's good to know. Gantley said, and Andrew looked at him. Ellie, I cannot understand how the Norset cannot figure out the solution to this octopus problem. Andrew said. Sir, if there is a solution they will find it. It simply is a hard nut to crack. But I am sure we can do it. Right now the problem is being looked at by our scientists back in our galaxies. Everybody is looking at it. May I continue? Resban said. Right, Resban. Andrew said. Resban continued, the Dachuans have an emperor and I sent out taggers and infiltrators to gather intel. All of the royal family have been tagged and almost all of their leaders. They will be able to finish tagging the leadership in a day. The tagging issue involves several areas. One is that we have to tag all the royals and military leadership and warriors, then we have to tag the zombies, then we have to tag the Talanaut slaves. With all the ships we have around 1.5 million taggers and about 1 million other people who also can tag. We should make full use of this number because the job is exceptionally in the realm of big numbers. I see where you're going. Andrew said. We identified some industrial complexes in the occupied planets and we found a ship repair facility on the ground. We waited for the ship to be unoccupied and when we had the chance we beamed it into our cargo bay. The data our scientists have gathered are available for everybody to see and make sense of. Anyone can study the actual ship in our cargo bay. Resban said. Can you send infiltrators in the Dachuan science centers, especially those dealing with the octopus and zombies? Ellie asked. Yes, I can do that immediately. Resban answered. Do we have all the occupied planets mapped out? Tonan asked. The data is available in all the ships. We just need to lay out the proper plans. Resban said. Let's spend 2 days tagging the Dachuan royals and warriors. Then we tag the zombies. In the meantime, gather more Dachuan intel on the octopus and how we can free the zombies. Andrew said. I guess 2 days would be enough for those. But we would still need at least 3 days for the slaves to be tagged. Although this is tricky because the slaves are all over the 90 planets. We would never be able to tag all of them. Resban said. Okay, so I sense some uneasiness in all of you. We can do this as we have done in the past. The numbers may be extremely large, but we can be careful and more detailed in our planning. Andrew said. After 2 days. Andrew started, so Bhaskar, Skamanak, ready the 10 ships. When you show yourselves, the Talonauts will screen you before they let you in. We will beam in when you are ready to go down to the planet. The screen shows well-designed cities. The palace looked small for a large civilization and from above appears just like a long square building. The building seems to be part of a large complex of more than 24 square buildings similar in size and height. They see a lot of small ships flying around near the ground and several large ones in orbit. The Talonauts are organized as a kingdom. The planets are run by princes and princesses. The capital planet has the king's palace, this square building. We can start beaming down our infiltrators before you appear in their orbit. I would suggest Bhaskar, that you decloak from here and fly down uncloaked so they have no idea of our cloaking abilities. Resban explained. Good Resban, so that's the plan then. Let's stick to Andrew's game plan. Olive, where are the chameleon devices and the translators? Tonan asked. The devices appeared on a table beside Andrew and they all got their devices and put them on. Okay, send out the infiltrators to the capital. Bhaskar, I know you are a good actor, Emperor Bhaskar, it's show time. Andrew said. Bhaskar laughed as did the others except for Skamanak.